This is reporter Vincent Kelly, live from the Manitowoc County Courthouse where proceedings are in progress. Let's listen in.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated. Your Honor, now that the witness has been sworn, I would like to ask him a few questions. Doctor, would you please state your name for the record?
Justus Hope, MD.
Can you spell your name for the record?
Justus with a U.S., like Justice, just us. And Hope is Dr. Hope, H-O-P-E.
Are you a medical doctor with an expertise in the brain?
Yes.
And how many years have you been practicing medicine?
Approximately 35 years.
And you are also a lawyer?
I graduated from law school and passed the bar exam, but I don't practice the law.
Okay, doctor. You are familiar with the Steven Avery case, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you are aware Steven's new lawyer, Kathleen Zellner, has filed a motion for a new trial based in part upon new evidence.
Yes.
And you are aware of the brain fingerprint test results, correct?
Yes, I am.
Doctor, in your expert medical opinion, can you tell us what a brain fingerprint test is?
It's similar to an EEG, a test used every day to check for seizures. It's a measure of the brain's electrical activity.
What does it tell us?
Well, with Steven Avery, it is claimed by the test's inventor, Dr. Lawrence Farwell, that it shows Steven Avery was not present when Teresa Halbach was murdered.
Objection! Lacks foundation and hearsay.
Overruled.
Your Honor, this is outrageous. I renew my objection to... Sit down, Mr. Kratz. You're out of order. I have already ruled on your objection, counsel. You may proceed with your examination.
Doctor, what does this mean for Steven Avery?
This brain fingerprint evidence is new, and it tends to show he has no encoded brain memory of some of the crime details, meaning he was not at the crime scene.
Now, doctor, just so the jury understands, you're trained both as a doctor and a lawyer, correct?
Yes, I graduated both med school and law school, but I currently practice medicine, not the law.
But you still understand the law like a lawyer, and you can help the jury understand what is going on in this case, correct?
Objection! Overruled, Mr. Kratz.
I think so. Steven Avery was convicted of the murder of Teresa Halbach in 2007. He is now 10 years into a life sentence without parole. He has exhausted all of his normal appeals through both the state and federal courts. His only real chance now is if newly discovered evidence, that is, evidence not available in 2007, comes to light. Then he could be granted a new trial. His new lawyer, Kathleen Zellner, is a superstar lawyer in this area. She has been able to find new evidence for other similar cases and win about a dozen exonerations for wrongfully convicted clients. If anyone is skilled enough to get Steven a new trial, it's Kathleen Zellner. She and her legal team have already spent nearly $1 million in legal resources to help Steven Avery.
Let's talk some more about the brain fingerprints. Can you explain how the test works?
The test uses what's called an ERP. This is known as an event-related potential to show recognition of something in our memory. For example, if a hypothetical murder were committed with a golf club, only the police and the killer knew about the golf club, then when an innocent suspect is tested, his brain would not light up to the phrase golf club. The scientist testing him would not see an ERP or a P300 wave. But then, if you tested the real killer, his brain would light up to golf club. It would show he had that stored in his encoded memory. Even if his mouth said he was innocent, his brain would say he was guilty. When Dr. Farwell tested Steven Avery, Avery's brain did not light up with any of the keyword crime details known only to investigators. Dr. Farwell said Steven had no memory or recognition with 99.9% certainty.
Can you tell us if Dr. Farwell's brain fingerprint testing is well accepted in the scientific community?
I can tell you that Dr. Farwell is famous for cracking two cases, the Harrington Murder and the Grinder Rape Murder cases. In the Harrington case in Iowa, Harrington was wrongfully convicted, and he spent 23 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Harrington claimed he was with friends at a concert at the time of the murder. 23 years later, he was finally given brain fingerprinting testing that showed two things. Number one, his brain did not show any memory of the key murder scene details. And number two, his memory lit up for details he would have seen at the concert, his alibi. This brain fingerprint supported his alibi and also showed he was not at the murder scene. The Iowa Supreme Court overturned his conviction and he was freed. In the second case, the Grinder case, Julie Helton, the victim, was brutally raped, her throat slashed, and her body dumped near railroad tracks in Missouri. The police did not have enough evidence to charge Grinder, and he escaped justice for 15 years. Finally, in 1999, while jailed for another crime, he agreed to the brain fingerprinting testing. His brain lit up with P300 waves in response to key phrases that only the killer would know, such as what type of ligature was used to bind Julie, how the murder was committed, and what items were left behind at the crime scene. As a result of this test, Grinder pleaded guilty to murder of Julie Helton and is now serving life in prison.
Cross-examination, Mr. Kratz? Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Hope, and by the way, that's not your real name, is it?
No, it's my pen name.
Why do you go by a pen name?
Well, since I've been researching the Avery case, I felt endangered. Witnesses I have spoken to have received death threats.
Believe me, I understand way more than you realize. Anyways, Dr. Hope, is this brain fingerprinting test controversial, or is it well accepted in the scientific community?
Actually, it's quite controversial.
Objection. Calls for speculation. Lack of foundation.
Overruled. The witness may answer. Can you tell the jury why?
Because the test is partly science and partly art. The art lays in designing the questions or phrases to ask the subject. The science is in measuring the P300 waves. And it depends on the suspect not having any knowledge of the crime if they were innocent. If they gain knowledge through the media or news, then their memory will be there even if they weren't at the crime scene. The key to a good test lays in asking the right questions. The ideal case is where the crime is recent, the trial has not yet occurred, and most of the crime details have been not made public.
So it's fair to say we have a case here that is not recent, correct?
The crime was committed in 2005, some 12 years ago, so it's not recent, correct.
And these details were made highly public, not only in the Wisconsin media, but in the national media with Making a Murderer, and it was all over the TV and the internet. Do I have that correct?
Objection. Compound, ambiguous, and calls for speculation.
I'll allow it. The witness may answer.
Yes, it's a highly public, high-profile case.
So it's one where the suspect would be expected to know all the details of the crime, whether or not he did it, making the test of questionable validity.
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation, lack of foundation, assumes facts not in evidence, and prejudicial.
The witness may answer.
Yes, for all of those reasons, it is not a good probative test in this case.
Any redirect, counsel?
Just a few questions, Your Honor. Dr. Hope, didn't Dr. Farwell find some areas of the Halbach murder that were not made public and were reasonable to ask of Mr. Avery?
Yes, there were.
And what were they?
Miss Zellner's post-conviction blood spatter expert determined that Halbach was murdered when she stood behind the open RAV4 cargo door and someone hit her from behind with blunt force. The questions designed by Farwell involved the assumption that the murder was committed exactly in that fashion. For example, he asked Avery something like, "Did you observe Miss Halbach standing behind her RAV4 with the cargo door open?" And his brain produced no P300 wave.
Any recross, Mr. Kratz?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Hope, so you're saying that the appeal lawyers had a different version of the crime details?
Different version than what?
Well, different than my two versions. You know, the first, at Steven Avery's trial, was that she was murdered in the trailer. And the second version, which I successfully employed at Brendan Dassey's trial, was that she was murdered in the garage. And now Zellner's team is saying she was murdered while standing up behind the RAV4. Do I have that correct?
That's essentially correct, yes.
Well, that is ridiculous. Mrs. Zellner is entitled to her own opinion, but not her own facts.
Objection, Your Honor. Is Mr. Kratz testifying? If he is, we need him sworn in first.
Dr. Hope, I have a few last questions for you.
Of course, Your Honor.
If the listener here wants more information from you on this case, where can they find it?
I spent 1,000 hours researching the Halbach murder and produced an investigative report of 100,000 words and 380 references and citations that can all be verified.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has been qualified as a medical and legal expert, but not a writer. I want the last answer stricken from the record.
Let me do it this way.
Dr. Hope, have you written any other books before?
Yes.
And were they well received in the scientific community?
Yes, it was actually a handbook for patients.
Well, I think that makes him qualified. So, Dr. Hope, what is your book called, and how can we get it?
The book is called Making a Martyr, Steven Avery versus Manitowoc County, Judging American Justice with Science. Soon it will be available on Amazon, but now you may get it from my website, drlawyerbook.com.
The witness is excused. You may step down, Dr. Hope. Yeah, don't trip.